Hello?
The number here.
Hello.
So can you hear us through the owl?
I'm on Zoom and I can hear you fine.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks everyone for attending that's here at Fuller Lodge and those on Zoom. I'm Corey Stern, I'm the Director of Community Service here in Los Alamos. And we're really excited to bring you about 14 months worth of work as we talk about our integrated master plan for the Community Services Department. This is a kind of unique master plan where we're actually looking at the health and wellness of our community, not only through typical parks and recreation elements, but including the library, social services, and our cultural arts. There's been a couple of communities that have done this, but we're kind of pioneering this work since we really, as the department, really do spend a lot of our end results in community physical health, community mental health, and community economic health. We provide opportunities for those to have side hustles and other businesses in the outdoor recreation. We're also into that key quality of life component that all of you know and love about this area, and that has benefits with future employers, as well as those that may be coming here to work for Llano. I want to share with you, this is the community website. If you'll hover over the project side on the right, you'll get this list of community. We'll give you a list of all county projects. If you'll click on the community service projects, you can go and click on the integrated master plan. And we have all the information to date on here for you to review. Previous meetings, previous focus group, previous presentations, guiding documents for the recommendations that they're providing you tonight. We have Pat O'Toole with Barry Dunn, who's our lead consultant. Then we also have Katrina Art, who's with MRWM, a local landscape architect, that is partnered with Barry Dunn on some of the level of assessment items. They really focus on the trails and trailheads. Tonight, we're going to be sharing some of the process, the recommendations. If you have a question, we'll be monitoring the chat feature. Also, as we get into the recommendations, we'll do a section at a time. We'll pause and allow you to answer the questions that you may have about that section. So with that, we'll get it started. Welcome, Pat.
Thank you, Corey. I will also mention one intricate member of our team planning on being here tonight. He's the guy that assessed every amenity in the parks, and he tested positive for COVID yesterday. So we're going to do our best. We know it pretty well, but if we do have to say don't know that, there's a reason for that, but we will find it out. Okay, so tonight, what we're getting down to the last lap on the project. As Corey said, we've been doing this for over a year, and it is a very unique project, that the integration that's just not parks and recreation. We see a lot sometimes parks and recreation libraries, but not that whole social services. So we did concentrate an awful lot on the community input on the front end of this, and talking with all those groups and integrating all that stuff. So if you feel like it's taking a long time, it has. Okay, first slide. So I'm gonna go through just a little bit of how we got here. And if you see the slide, this is our process. As I just mentioned, there's 4 stages of public engagement. This is number 3. The information gathering, a lot was virtual, and a lot in person. And stage 2, we came and presented the findings, talked about some preliminary recommendations through some visioning processes, went back and put the first draft of the report together, which tonight we're going to show you the recommendations portion of that. So where we are right now, the red circles there, and what we're looking for is looking at that draft report, letting us know what edits need to be made, and then turn that into the final product. As far as our outreach sessions, we did 13 focus groups, 5 board presentations, library, parks and rec, arts and public places, community health and transportation. We did a summary seminar with 15 participants. The Los Alamos Middle School Leadership Group. We had 200 total participants in all the focus groups, which is great. We also did a statistically valid survey, and I've got a slide to show you kind of how many we sent out, how many we got back, but it was very successful. Then we came in and did 4 findings presentations in that visioning workshop we talked about. So again, we concentrated, spent an awful lot of time on public input and engagement. So the survey, we sent out 9,189 postcards. Those were randomly distributed. 8,833 actually delivered. That means wrong addresses, things that come back. But we did get over 1,000 total surveys back. 787 of those were invitation. That's the randomly distributed. We then put the same survey online. I don't want to say 3 weeks later. And we got 311 of that. But that gave everybody an opportunity to fill the survey out. What we find is, in most cases, we could say we got over 1,000 surveys because we compare the two. We do tally them separately to keep the validity, but most of them aren't more than a percentage point apart. So it kind of is another sense of verifying that information. The next thing I'm going to show you is a very integral chart, but very important to us. And I'll explain kind of how this is kind of a summary of what we heard and how loud we heard. So the red squares came out as a priority because we heard it a lot in several different factors. The blue is opportunity to improve, and we usually drop the C's off because they're minor or we didn't hear them very much, or the list would just go on forever. Eventually, what we're going to go through is the key issues. This is the key issues that came out of all of our engagement. So if you look across the top, we've got several different methods and things we looked at to determine when we asked the questions, what needs improved? What would you like to see different to create those key issues? So we've got those split out into qualitative and quantitative data. So I'm going to start backwards. This is our facility assessment and level of service. That's our guy that went out and looked at every one of your amenities, graded them, and does a GIS system and that level of service. So his is all going to be focused on facilities. So as you see, this one's all about organization, is why there's only 2 dots there. The next one is LAC data. That is the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of sheets of information that you guys gave up to go through. The next one's the survey. So that's very important, but it is just one tool. Okay, so we compare everything. The next one is leadership. That's as we met with all the boards. We met with all the commissions and talked to the leaders in your community, what they'd like to see. The next one is the stakeholder input. Those are the people that are involved that typically the focus groups, they're invited because they are involved and they have an interest in what we're doing. Public input, we kind of separate that because that's come all to the public meetings. Staff input, very important to us to sit down with staff and ask them the same things. They have a lot of data. They've been here a lot of years, a lot of history. The consultant team. As we look at stuff, as we go out and look at the parks and look at all of your data, we form our opinions on what are key issues that need to be looked at in this plan. Then these last 6 are actually plans that were done prior to this plan that it can influence this plan, such as the comp plan. The strategic leadership plan. We also have the tourism, the strategic plan, the economic vitality strategic plan, the open space management plan was very important, and the bicycle transportation plan, which really addresses the trails and what have you. So again, some of the stuff that we've looked at, they had a special focus done in a period of time where the information was still valid. So you can see where we kind of cost tabbed and said, hey, they thought the same thing. Hey, this can implement part of that plan too. Then we looked at, okay, all these key issues, what do they have in common? Okay, split them up into, these are all organizational issues. Then these are all facility issues, and these are all programmatic issues. So sometimes we come up with safety. You know, in some communities, safety is a really big issue. Funding, financing. But in this case, just pretty much those 3 categories where these fell. And within these categories, we prioritized and brought the loudest and the most often to the top. Okay, does that make sense? All right, so in that fact, I'm going to go through these 3. We'll spend a whole lot of time because, again, you're going to see these tucked into goals and objectives. Improve and increase partnership agency relationships. Came out as the top one for the organizational. Need better marketing and communication of activities. Attract tourism and outdoor recreational opportunities. Increase community-wide inclusivity. Website is not current or usable for patrons. Wi-Fi in all parks and facilities. Pursue grant opportunities. Need better wayfinding signage and maps. And upgrade and increase the volunteer program. So those were the top things. And the other thing we look at is what is achievable in 10 years instead of just spitting out the A to Z list. And it stretches you. So you know, it's not just here's the amount of money you have, so here's all you can do. It stretches you to think of creative ways to do that. Yeah, the next category, programs and service delivery. So same categories up top of where we heard. These came out as top 1 was attract tourism, outdoor recreation, nature education, and stewardship opportunities. We saw trails as a highlight across the board in all these. Stewardship was woven inside everything. Outdoor, as you guys can imagine. We also had increased cultural programs. Need for programming for families, youth, tweens, teens. Integration of the health, wellness, and social service programs was big. That's that integrated plan that people wanted to see. Increased mental and physical health services for youth, tweens, teens, and families. Increased programs in wellness, fitness, cultural special needs. Increase the number of special events. Expand operational hours for the working public. And increase the number of child care opportunities. Seemed like that was a big issue in the community. There wasn't enough of that. And then the last area is the facilities and amenities. And they don't look like much up here, but improved low scoring amenities. Those include a long list that you're going to see of the things that were scored low when we went out and looked in the field. We score them on a 1, 2, and 3, and that's the ones that scored 1s that probably need some immediate attention. Maintain and improve existing facilities. People really felt like, don't go out and build everything new if you haven't fixed up what you got. Upgrade outdated amenities that do not function well. Additional trails, bike paths, and connectivity. Continue to add and improve current projects and future facilities. Preserve open space, historical and cultural resources. Deferred maintenance was considered an issue. Trail signage and maps. Increase ADA accessibility at all facilities. And I will say that we ran concurrent with an ADA study that was separate that we have folded into this one. And actually endorsed and have pointed out, how much per year it would take to bite off the 10-year chunk of that. And then the last one, improve restroom availability and maintenance in parks and trailheads. So again, this one's pretty red all the way across. So these were issues that even if you were talking trails, they saw that same wayfinding signage and some of the things that we heard elsewhere. So again, this is what's going to be the bulk of what you see tonight is what all these projects are.
So let's take a moment. Is there anybody here or on Zoom that has any questions about the key issues matrix? So we can try to bite this off in chunks. You don't have to remember questions from earlier. Well, I'm not seeing anyone with questions here in Fuller Lodge yet. Is there anyone on Zoom that has a question at this point in time? You'll raise your hand. We're driving the Zoom bus. Okay, we'll keep going, and as we move forward, we'll stop at each section here for additional opportunities for comments or thoughts.
Just so you know what's coming now, we're just going to take that key issue matrix and break it down into recommendations. So the 3 goals that we came up with, again, about the organization: improve organizational reach and impact. Goal 2, improve programs and service delivery. Goal 3, improve facilities and amenities. Pretty broad goals, but everything's going to tuck underneath there as objectives and then action steps. So objectives for goal 1, which is the improve organizational reach and impact. Improve and increase partner relations. So these are going to line up with those key issues. Enhance marketing and communication of activities. Attract tourism and outdoor recreation opportunities. Increase community-wide inclusivity. Keep technology up to date. Pursue grant opportunities and improve wayfinding signage and maps, and upgrade and increase volunteer program. So maybe not word for word, but again, they align with that key issue matrix, which is that summary page. The objectives for goal 2, which is improve programs and service delivery. Attract tourism, outdoor recreation, nature education, and stewardship opportunities. Increase cultural programs and services. Add more programming for families, youth, tweens, and teens. Integration of health, wellness, and social services programs for all ages. Integration of mental and physical health services for youth, tweens, teens, and families. Increase programs in wellness and fitness, culture, and special needs. And increase the number of special events. Expand operational hours for working public. And increase the number of child care opportunities. Three, improve facilities and amenities. Improve your low scoring amenities, maintain and improve existing facilities, continue to add and improve current projects and future facilities. So we kind of threw those together. Upgrade outdated amenities that don't function well. Install additional trails, bike paths, and connectivity. Preserve open space, historical and cultural resources. Increase ADA accessibility at all facilities, and improve restroom availability and maintenance in parks and trailheads. So now, if you can imagine action steps underneath each one of these, and you'll see we put this in what we call an action table. So in the report, it's going to be at the very end. This is what we hope becomes dog-eared over 10 years, that you can sit down and go after the low-hanging fruit and really decide year to year what you're going to bite off and what you can afford to do. So this is what the chart's gonna look like for the rest of our presentation. We did have the goal at the top, objective that we've gone through, and then we have the actions. And the columns we have here is capital cost estimates, operational cost impact, if there's gonna be an O&M cost to that, and a time frame to complete. So the time frame to complete, and did we skip one? Go back one. I thought I had a slide that went through this. One more. Go forward again. There we go. Okay. So we're focusing on maintaining, sustaining, and improving Los Alamos County Park facilities, activities, services, open space, and trails. That's what's in this plan. I'm going to skip to the fourth bullet, the time frame, which is that last column you're going to see. Short term, roughly up to 3 years. Midterm, 4 to 6 years. Long term, 7 to 10 years. You're going to see some that are ongoing, which is just what it says. It's ongoing throughout the plan. What we try not to do is break these down into here's priority 1, here's priority 2, here's priority 3. And you're going to see this list. It's almost impossible to do that. But usually what happens in the past with my background being even as a practitioner, you get stuck somewhere in that list. So the rest of it never happens. What we want to do is say, here's the group that you ought to be working on. You get a grant for one that's down here. Even if you get a grant for one midterm in year 3, go for it. So it's meant to prioritize it, but leave it flexible. Okay, I'm going to let Katrina explain. She and her company did the cost estimates, and you can imagine it's a really difficult time to do it. Number one, but all these that we do, we're trying to get to just that budget number and not a bid number.
Yes, I hope to fix my voice. Anyway, so Pat was already alluding to that right now. It's really difficult to make cost estimates because material prices basically change on a weekly basis. And sometimes when we put something out for bid, it comes back like at 3 times the cost. So these costs that we associate with some of the projects later in the list should be taken with a grain of salt, but they're a base cost to kind of get an understanding where we are at. But obviously they need to be looked at again when those projects are being actually being done. And then we also have a to be determined on some of the projects just because they need further investigation, and some of those are less clear yet, and so they need to be assessed later down the road. And we tried our best to put costs to the elements that we could, but there are some that we could not yet talk about.
Great, thank you. So in other words, it's kind of an order of magnitude. So you kind of get an idea. It's a big project, it's a huge project, small project, and they're all done in 2023 terms now. So there's not going to be any inflation as this plan grows. Right now, that's one of the toughest things in our industry for anybody is the longer you wait, the higher the price tag. And right now, delivery of goods is really shooting that through the ceiling. So as you go through here, you're going to see some that might be a unit cost. You're going to see some that might be a range. You're going to see some that here's right at this point in time, here's what we think this will cost. Okay, then.
So to answer question, Kevin, it's about all partnerships. We didn't specify individual partners. It's partnerships across the region.
Okay, so now, objective one, improve and increase the partnership agency relationships. So we've gone 1.1A all the way to 1.1F on this slide. So continue to work with the Health Council, establish community health strategic plan with assistance from the medical community and the mental health community. Looking at that as pretty much staff time, no capital costs, and short term. Continue to evaluate programs and services provided with social service agencies, ongoing and some staff time. Continue to invest in partnerships with the National Park Service and Bandelier, staff time and ongoing. Coordinate with the 3 national parks, the mountain owners, operators, everybody included in that whole tourism look, ongoing. And potential partnership with NFS development in the Valley Culvers biking, packing trail, staff time and long term. And potential partnership with NPS development, the Mandalay multi-use trail plan long term, in staff time. Objective 2, enhance marketing and communication of activities. So we're still in that organizational goal. Annual update of the marketing plan. So that would be ongoing with staff time. Update website and social media regularly, same thing. Publish the activity guide in multiple media formats, short-term and staff time. Produce effective and centralized marketing to engage the community in library events and services to increase awareness that the library is a central resource for individuals in the community. Ongoing and staff time. And continue to evaluate and look at other venues and media to dispense information to the community. It's always an ongoing opportunity to see how else we can get information out. So, and staff time pretty much. Next objective, attract tourism and outdoor recreational opportunities. Continue to work with the PEC to develop local firms about nature, outdoor recreation, and history to show at the planetarium. Ongoing process and staff time. Explore additional festivals and events as a catalyst to tourism, short term, staff time, and then depending on the event, there'll be some event costs and supplies, which again, we don't know what those would be. Add a multi-use event space that supports 300 people and accommodates business meetings, community events, and destination space. That's more of a capital issue. And we're putting it midterm, even though it's under organizational, that would be a facility, but it ties to the tourism, is why it's in here.
And Georgia Strickfaden has mentioned that she couldn't hear the questions. We may want to just clarify that they came in through the chat or the Q&A. And so if we answer them, we should probably
Read the question.
read the question.
Okay. Good advice. Okay, expand recreational offerings that attract visitors and improve community experience, staff time and ongoing. Create a promotional video and showcase outdoor recreation, history, and science activities and events in Los Alamos. Short-term staff time plus the production cost and airtime to run that video. Continue to provide specific marketing to visitors at the 3 national parks to showcase the primary outdoor recreation, history, and science attractions in Los Alamos, as well as hospitality services. Look at that as a short-term action step with staff time. Implement county plans for extensions, upgrades, maintenance, and new trails that benefit visitors and residents. Increase funding and staffing to address trail maintenance and improvements. So, well, we also thought that one might need some additional maintenance staff. We put 45,000 to 90 in there, thinking how many hours you could do some part-time, you could have a couple of full-time, whatever that might be. And it's going to also be ongoing as you put your plan together. So you kind of see how trails and stewardship and all that kind of weaves itself through organizational and programming and facilities. Last one under that goal is, or that objective is Do libraries provide information on Los Alamos County activities and amenities, ongoing and staff time? Next objective, increase community-wide inclusivity. Reach out to all partner agencies to collaborate on creating a one-stop shop for information on all parks, recreation, libraries, cultural, social events, and activities for all of Los Alamos and White Rock residents and visitors. So that's a mouthful, but it's really so that everybody knows where to get information or programs and where to send people. And it can become a one-stop shop through the community services department here.
Do we want to take some questions or do you want to continue?
Why don't we get through the
Sure.
organizational, then we'll kind of come back. Because the last question was answered in the next slide. If you can.
That's fine.
Offer innovative and diverse programming services and resources for youth, families, and adults that meet their evolving needs to be delivered in the library and where target market resides. So might be some new instructors on some programs and some staff time. And we looked at that as a short-term action step. Keep library collection up to date, diverse in subject formats and experience, responsive to community needs and attractive. Ongoing process. Monitor, track, and evaluate the methods and trends of how library media is used by the community, such as digital books and non-traditional platform. Staff time and ongoing. Next objective, keep technology up to date. Continue to upgrade and maintain that's CSD pages on the LAC website. So staff time could potentially another marketing position. We put 40,000 in there. Again, it's keeping up with social media and websites and all that is sometimes a job within itself. And sometimes there's a reason why people say your web page isn't up to date is because we don't have the manpower to do it. So we put that as a short-term fix because that's going to help everything else. Consider Wi-Fi in all parks and facilities in the county broadband project as a midterm to accomplish that. And keep technology up to date for efficiency and convenience for patrons and staff and provide both mainstream and emerging technologies to community members that promote equity and address the digital divide. Staff time and ongoing, we'll always address that. Provide a safe, comfortable, accessible space that meets technology and physical demands in the 21st century library. A long-term action, provide technology access
Must be on your street.
I heard that.
I have sound again on Zoom.
So it looks like a meeting pause. And echo. Whoever that one is. Then to lunch. Yeah, if people are now. I kind of wanted that. I wanted to see the speakers there, Linda. What? No, what? I didn't hear you. Can you hear yourself? So you everyone. I shut that.
You guys hear us? Can the online people hear us?
I can hear.
Thank you.
Which one are we on?
So,
You're on.
sorry for that little bit of delay there. We did have one question, right about the time we lost some of the technology. The question was regarding the size of the event space. There was some conversation about increasing that from 300 to 400 to make room potentially for the high school prom up here. That's the only thing we've kind of talked about. At this time, for 1 through 4, are there any questions from the Zoom community? We have a question regarding the cost estimate. We haven't, it's something that's going to have to be fleshed out. At this point, it's just so many variables. Right now, we can tell you that it's about $400 to $450 a square foot to build a building. And we just haven't got that far down into the details of looking at what that cost is at this point in time.
and site costs, and you have to buy property, and there's so much that goes into that.
Kevin also asked, what did the data say about the kind of events the multi-use space is needed for? And what are the county plans referenced in 1.3G? Do those plans exist?
The first one, I would say most of the input was for community, all types of community events. And they listed concerts and cultural events, and this would be a way to possibly increase tourism as well, to have some of the different shows there, those types of things. So it was everything. It was more discussion on the size, which prom wasn't brought up, but now that it has been, it needs to be a little bigger, so. And what was the second question?
What are the county plans referenced in 1.3G? Do those plans exist?
1.3G. I can look through.
Yes, there is a 2013 trails plan. I think we're gonna have to redo it because it was done by the lead of the International Mountain Biking Association, and I think that's gonna cause some concern by some members of our community. So there's a really good chance that we'll take that data and we'll do a new trails plan. There's already some existing maintenance issues that we're addressing from that plan. But I think that was gonna have to be redone just by who was the original provider of it.
And we have included that redo plan in here.
Sue asked, some of these recommendations are for very specific projects, multi-use trail and we are moving for peaks, etc. How were they identified as priorities? Where did they come from?
Basically from the input, if there's names listed in there, that's what was brought up from either the focus groups or in a plan or whatever. So we made no assumptions other than what we were told.
A lot of this information early on here is coming from existing plans, with the comp plan. This trail plan that I mentioned a little bit earlier. It's coming from the original Parks and Rec study. And then some of the information you heard from individuals during some of the meetings.
Are we on 1.5?
We're getting ready to go there. Are there any more questions?
There are no other questions.
Okay, thank you. We'll keep rolling.
Okay, and we finished this slide on this.
Oh, we finished it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, so to continue with objective 5. Provide a safe, comfortable, accessible space that meets the technological and physical demands of the 21st century library. Long-term, provide technology access for visitors. Ongoing. Objective 1.6, pursue grant opportunities. Contract with a dedicated grant writer to research and submit grants. We have $30,000 in there to assist with that. And short term, acquire stable, broad-based financial and non-financial resources to support the program's growth. Staff time to assist with that and ongoing. Objective, improve wayfinding, signage and maps to improve the directional wayfinding signage and maps to facilities on roadways and within parks. And we feel staff time could identify those and it could be ongoing. And should align and be part of the trail plan, actually. Update map of open space and trails to promote the use by residents in a variety of platforms. Staff time and ongoing, be updated as the trail system's updated. Continue to improve visitor maps to highlight trails that best service visitors and provide connections to attractions and add information about the trails app. And that's ongoing as well. And then the next objective is upgrade and increase the volunteer program. We have a plan to attract and retain qualified and diverse volunteer staff for all services and activities, which is basically takes staff time and is an ongoing venture. Any other questions on the organizational goal, objectives, and action steps?
Just curious, when you talk about having one of them here is the contract for a dedicated grant writer and at 30,000. That just seems low in terms of, and would that be a recurring yearly cost or?
Yes. And again, it's a shot. We've seen everything from, paying somebody a percentage of what they bring in, which could be zero. In our staff discussions, the reality of that might not have been, and the reality is, you see this everywhere, there's just not time to do the dedication on every possible grant that you can do. So it's kind of a different ways to approach it, whatever works. 1 year might work better this way, and another year you might find somebody who's in the community that this is what they want to volunteer and do.
Kevin asked, can the data gathered about event space need to be shared? And then made a comment that visitors are more interested in routes than trails. Visitors are more interested in routes than trails.
What type of routes?
Routes are, they're more interested in knowing places they can walk that take them somewhere and how long it's going to take. So in terms of promoting things to visitors, it's more important to focus on helping them understand routes. That, if you tell them, hey, you can go on the Bio Canyon Trail, that tells them way less than, hey, you can take a loop that takes you from where you're standing right now into the canyon to walk along the canyon rim to see this and that, and it'll bring you back here. So that's it's just a comment from experience. Routes are what should be emphasized in terms of any materials that are geared at visitors.
We'll make a note of that. And what we were thinking is between the wayfinding signage and the maps and the apps, that yes, distances, connectivity to attractions, people want to know where they can end up, and all that stuff is kind of wrapped. That's how we would suggest handling the routes.
And then Kevin, the data that brought up the event space is back on that county webpage at the top. If you'll look at the community survey, it's indicated in that document.
So you need to kind of go through there and find, it's not summarized anywhere, I gather it.
It might be in the executive summary, I do not recall. But there was a specific question on the wants and needs regarding space in the survey data. Also, there was a meeting last summer that did a summary of the findings of the survey. The data's in there as well.
The reason I ask is, a relatively new development parallel with all of the work that's being done to gather this info is the opening of Sala Event Center, which it remains to be seen to what extent can it handle some of what are perceived as needs. So it would be very useful to be able to get a good handle on what the perceived needs are, and have Sala have the opportunity to help with that in very short order.
Thank you.
Okay, we get them all in. All right. All right, now we're gonna move into goal 2, which is improve programs and service delivery. Objective 2.1, attract tourism, outdoor recreational, nature, education, and stewardship opportunities. Focus on marketing outdoor recreation history and science as the 3 core destination and tourism aspects of Los Alamos. Ongoing and staff time. Enhance outdoor recreation events and programming for the community. Short-term and staff time. Add a multi-use event space, so we've got it in here again for programming. And in a midterm and that might be something we don't need in both places. So we'll make a note of that. Expand outdoor recreational offerings for diverse users that attract visitors and improve experiences for trails, including trail expansion, trail condition and improvements. We had that down at staff time and short term. Renovate and utilize sport field as economic drivers and athletic-based tourism, as well as improve experiences for local users. And again, staff time and midterm. Develop partnerships with other county departments and other community organizations to build mutually beneficial connections, leverage resources, and increase collaboration and coordination to meet identified community needs. Staff time and a midtime goal for that action step. Next objective, increase cultural programs and services. Action steps, add cultural and multicultural educational and recreational activities, including the senior center, indigenous populations, digital citizenships, etc. And an ongoing and staff time. Engage with the community and provide programming at a variety of community locations. Could take additional instructors as you grow your programs and staff time to do that, and short-term action step. Continue supporting Los Alamos Creative Cultural District and art in public spaces as an ongoing action step with staff time. Next objective, add more programming for families, youth, tweens, and teens. Action steps, continue to expand program opportunities for teens, tweens, families, youth in all locations, including after-school programs, life skill programs, technology programs, etc. And again, an ongoing venture with staff time and additional instructors. Partner with schools, the Teen Center, Youth Activity Center, and other organizations to provide after-school activities, homework, online learning support. Staff time and a short-term action step. Offer innovative and diverse programming services and resources for youth based on trends and non-traditional activities. Short-term staff time and instructors to help pull that out. Construction of a Los Alamos Teen Center. Again, with not knowing how big, what it's going to cost, we put $5 million in there. Potential additional staff, 30,000, and a midterm staff. Next objective, integration of health, wellness, and social services programs for all ages. Increase and improve partnerships for knowledge sharing of where and how to receive social services. Train staff, disseminate accurate and appropriate information. Resource be staff time and ongoing. Address Los Alamos silent but sizable near poor population through partnerships with community agencies and addressing issues of equity and a digital divide. Staff time and a midterm goal or action step. Embedded librarians in the community and organizations outside the library walls. Staff time and midterm. Next objective, integration of mental and physical health services for youth, tweens, teens, and families. Address the mental health issues related to stress and anxiety by developing partnerships with social services and other organizations. It will take staff time and it will be ongoing. Assist with increasing awareness of available services to all needs and all ages. Same with staff time and ongoing, and integrate mental and physical health services throughout the CES programs and offering this to include community partners. And that would be ongoing. Next objective, increase programs in wellness, fitness, cultural, and special needs. First step, expand programs in wellness, fitness, cultural, and special needs as an ongoing step with staff time and whatever additional instructors are needed. Utilize nature, education, and stewardship opportunities to preserve and protect historic and cultural resources, ongoing. Offer innovative and diverse programming, services, and resources for youth, families, and adults that meet their evolving needs to be delivered where they are. Short term, as a step, staff time and whatever additional instructors is what the O&M cost would be. Explore opportunities to create and expand activity participation, indoor and outdoor recreation facilities. That would be a long-term step with staff time. Next objective, increase the number of special events, expand community special event opportunities, and increase partnerships. Staff time plus whatever event cost would be for any new events, and short time action step. Explore hosting festivals and special events. Same thing with staff time and event costs and a short term action step. Next objective, expand operational hours for the working public. Include more evening, weekend, and after school programs. Short term action step with staff time and additional instructor costs. Enhance and expand diverse and inclusive recreation opportunities of residents and visitors. Ongoing step and staff time. And any additional instructors. Provide a safe and comfortable, accessible space that meets the technology and physical demands of the 21st century library, long-term and staff time. Next objective, increase the number of childcare opportunities. Assist with increasing awareness of available child care options. As part of that one-stop shop, which would be ongoing and staff time. That will pause for any questions about the programming and service delivery.
Anybody, Fuller Lodge have a comment, thoughts?
Yeah, a couple. As we look at objective 2.6, increasing programs in wellness, fitness, cultural, and special needs. I kind of feel like somewhat lost in that becomes the special needs population in terms of kind of fleshing that out more. And that's something that as a community, I hope that we strive to do, because if we want to attract and retain people in our community, one way we can do that is through surveying our special needs population in a way that other communities don't. Like if Los Alamos can stand above and all of that, that's us apart.
And I will say that it did stand out in our input. It stood out in our survey as a number of folks that needed it. And it probably was condensed. And not to diminish it, but if you feel it can stand alone, we could certainly have its own line.
I would encourage that as something that,
Okay.
to have that standalone, so continue to have focus, because if that gets lost and be like, cool, I've got this to work out, but that.
Right. Just to be honest with you, when we started out, we had increased teens, increased tweens,
Yeah.
increased families across all those. So we tried to condense it, but I will say it did stand out.
If I think of it, I'll come back to it, but yeah.
Okay.
Anybody online with a question? Comment?
Input for Kevin, 5 local business organizations versus make whatever possible, or whenever, make whenever possible.
I remember what my other question was. As we look through here, we look at places where there's, you're indicating that, what would be needed to be staff time and instructors. Is the thought with that, that would be instructors who were county employees, or is that looking at more broadly that you just would need people who would be instructors for that, and it might be.
What we're trying to
staff
do,
or be contract.
yeah, what we're trying to do is prevent trying to do more stuff with the same resources.
I appreciate that.
And usually the way that happens is what we call instructors are people that have a wealth of knowledge in the area that they can put that program on. And if I'm a programmer, I can only be in one room at one time an hour, but I can hire however many I need in whatever area. So that's why it is going to take staff time to set that up. And then you're going to have to, cover whatever percentage across the board with fees for these instructors.
So to Kevin's comment, just to clarify, was yours more about make sure we use our local resources and our local small businesses to try to attack as much of this as possible? Was that what you were?
Yeah, it's like that. Like a lot of the things that are listed are things that occurs to me, the YMCA is set up to do and provide, and maybe even at a advantageous cost structure. If they're contracted, if there's more need for those kind of things like youth things, child things, the more that they're able to put resources to that, I think that could be the county can be more of a resource steward that helps those things happen versus needing to make those capabilities as internal county capabilities. And there you also have more flexibility that way. Staffing is very tough. So like if the county were to go out and say, we're increasing youth programs, the county pays more, has better benefits, everything else, it's likely that everyone else's who is already taking on part of those issues, like businesses and organizations, may not be able to staff what they do anymore, and it makes even a bigger need. So I think you got to hopefully look at it big picture, community wise, and to the extent that there are businesses and organizations that can fulfill and address needs, the bigger thing that the county could do to be helpful is get resources and properly manage those resources so that those organizations can increase what they're doing and fulfill the needs.
Make sure we clarify that in the organization, what we were talking about, those partnerships. That we look at local resources as collaborators providing service and necessarily focus on whatever that wording is, with outbound, and it's not so much an inbound.
Right.
Look,
In our intent was to do both. If they're capable of doing it, great, partner with them. If they're not, because we also heard a lot of new needs because we are integrated. So,
thank you.
great. Thanks, Kevin.
Any other questions, Linda? Okay.
Okay. In the interest of time, I'm just throwing this out. Are we just reading to you? And you're capable of reading yourselves? And we can still hit the high points? The only reason I asked is we're an hour in and we're just now getting to the long section.
Any thoughts from the participants on Zoom on that?
We did add a column to all the facilities. That doesn't have a comment in every one of them, but the ones that Katrina and her crew thought we needed a little bit more comment, we added another column here. We're happy to do it the way we've been doing it. I hate to read to people if you've got it right in front of you and it's legible and you can ask questions. Any thoughts?
My only thought would be if we went kind of slide by slide and give people a chance to then, because people at home don't have a
Yes.
handy printout necessarily. Yeah, just to sort of read through and then, sort of give people a portion of them and then look for questions, because there's lots of really granular information and there might be, I'm sure there's folks that have a very specific thing they want to talk to about, on 2 pages away and aren't so worried about the other stuff. And
Okay, and are we still okay kind of getting through section? We can do however many of the objectives and stop.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. The one thing I would ask is there anything that's kind of a new topic that is going to be like novel or that you sense a lot of people have never thought about or anything. Most of everything I've seen so far is kind of pretty much the same kinds of things that in my mind are ongoing identified things. So that'd be my comment about that.
And I will say that most of it probably falls into that, fix the low scoring amenities, fix what you got, and then there's gonna be a few new, but nothing, you know, I'd say the event center was probably the biggest. Unless you could think of.
I think in this list, the two that stand out to me are, there's one about a renovation of Camp Maine. And there's, renovation of athletic fields to go from natural grass to turf. I think.
Yeah, the Camp May one I've heard a long time, but yeah, that's a good example. I think that's certainly a new thing to talk about. Athletic fields go into artificial turf or something like that. That would be a pretty big and new. That's in my purview. That's novel.
For the high points, I would like to know how you decided the minute section was short-term versus mid-term. Georgia Straight said, adding to what Kevin said about local entities already providing a long-term for gas people and do in spite of LEC trying to offer everything. And then David T said, I'm trying to understand priorities in the next section.
Okay. And just on the front end, as just a general rule, those things that really aren't functioning well, were typically in the short term, those that were graded as they're not working or they're not providing the service they're supposed to, we're in the short term. And in the midterm, we kind of looked at the biggest bang for your buck and getting some momentum going instead of coming out and you got to wait and raise money to do anything. So, but we're open to anything that any comments on this should be moved up for midterm to short term or whatever.
I think another piece of information that is out on the county website that was in here, there's a summary document. If you have a desire to see each individual facility, I have a library of the ADA audits for each individual facility. That played a pretty large role in trying to figure out the short term, the midterm, the long term. Because we have to have a time frame plan to bring everything up to ADA standards. Doesn't mean we've got to do everything now, but sometime in the next 12 to 15 years. We should have everything updated. And in that meantime, we've got to make sure that we're trying to serve Los Alamos and White Rock equitably for venues. And then some of the items that are the only provider in the county or the only item in the county also kind of rise up on the ADA requirements. For example, like the ice rink, the aquatic center, really need to be at the top of the list because they're the only venue that people can access that activity. So those documents, and then honestly, it was the consultant and the staff looking at that data and making our best guess. So we're flexible. We also use the consultant recommendations from the ADA audit, which was a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Nice to do. And phase 1 was 1 to 5 years. Phase 2 was 3 to 7. Phase 2 was 3 to 7. And then 7 to 10 was phase 3.
There are 12.
12. And that summary document is also listed on the county webpage is how we kind of got here. So
The other thing I'd say we looked at was level of service, which kind of speaks to what Corey says about equity. Between not just your two townships, your town sites, but where in your each town site, do people have things to go do? Whether it's after school or with families, and if there's something you can upgrade it in an area to satisfy that and spread that equity out. We looked at that as well, and that's some heat maps and those types of things, based again on the grading scale of each amenity. So that includes trails, trailheads, playgrounds, ball fields.
Any questions before we jump into this? Okay,
Right,
Okay. And I'll cover these, if you have questions, put them in the chat and we'll get to them. Again, the cost estimates here are really high level, we were trying to, have each of these elements that were proposed for improvement or replacement, priced out as good as possible, but with, the high level look that we are taking at all of this, sometimes it's not that accurate, so don't hang yourself on the numbers right now. So for the 37th Street play lot, and I think that's a common for a lot of the play lot, access sometimes is or they're not very well marked. So a lot of them include signage that we have priced out as a kiosk directional signage or a site ID sign. And those often with the play lot, there's like trails that that you access through the play lot. So having trail signage that's getting you to there and then to your comment, but or Kevin's comment, I think, identifying on those directional signage, how long those trails are or what kind of trails those are would be really helpful. And then also including trail kiosks that, or a kiosk at those locations that identify where the trail is gonna take you, what part of the play lot. So just giving more information to users will be helpful. And then you can see we have consider plaza. So there's also sometimes pieces missing, like a concrete pad for the tables, but then that begs to add potentially maybe a ramp to it. So there is pieces that are not entirely considered for everything yet, but the pricing, the cost gives you an idea of what is involved, and we were trying to get unit costs where we could. So if there is more that is needed, and for example, if we need to add a accessible ramp, then we have costs later on that like break down what the square foot cost would be, so you can start figuring out how much that would cost if you get into the details. And then, as Corey was saying, the ADA plan exists also and can be consulted for some of these elements as well. For here, we also consider upgrades to the Low Spring playground. The 50,000 includes a new playground. Sometimes, and those are costs obviously that you can look at a case by case basis. Some of these playgrounds may be still pretty functional, and you may want to push that cost to a further down the road date. So next one. For the Camp May that we were just alluding to, there is a recommendation to do a facility master plan, and that then would identify what some of these components could be that could be added. We also have a shelter, a trailhead, identified campground upgrade, including RV camping, and then event space, outdoor classroom. Those are that's defined. I think once you develop the facility master plan, you can figure out what these elements would be and how much they would cost. We'll go to the Canyon Road tennis courts. We identified ball courts improvements, replace benches and tennis courts, general maintenance on wood wall and fencing fabric. And then community soccer fields, upgrade to the playground. Again, this is a replacement. And the different equipment types are or some of the components that are included are in the note section. Grand Canyon play lot. Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay. Take it.
Finish the sidewalk at the east end by the playground. So sometimes there's pieces that are missing that we are trying to add to complete some of these facilities to be better accessible. Accessible route and south playground, ADA access and accessible surfacing, consider upgrades to the small shelter, directional signage for trails, site ID sign and kiosk for trail map. South Way Station. Jeffrey Play Lot, directional signage, site ID signage, upgrade to the park playground. And again, like the signage is usually something that's not as expensive and makes a big difference because it adds information and helps people understand what's there. So those are things that you could also do quick on. Loma Linda Park, here again, a site-specific master plan might be a good idea just because the park is a little less defined yet, and that could help identify what could be added and improved, and then sign it for missing. The Mountain Meadow Park, consider site improvements to improve design and ambiance. That was a comment that Dave and I think Pat, you guys added. That's a little lofty, so I think that can be tied to standards. We will talk about those later. So county-wide standards for parks and trails. And once those are defined, we can figure out better what like those standards for design and ambiance are, and have those be improved county-wide. Upgrade to picnic tables, playground, and spring riders, and then identifying and establishing a secondary trailhead. When we looked at the trailheads, we kind of identified two classes of trailheads: a trailhead, a major trailhead that goes along with parking and bench and a kiosk, and that it's more like a beach or a county-wide attraction. And then the secondary trailheads are those small trailheads that often don't have any parking. So this one would be a secondary trailhead that includes signage and attractions at the whole Southway Station. North Mesa Park, that is where the recommendation is to potentially convert Jim Flint Field to synthetic turf, and that has quite a high sticker price. It's expensive to convert fields, but your O&M costs will go potentially down if you have the equipment to maintain it. You don't need somebody mowing a field every other week. But those are expensive, so moving the restrooms closer to the playground, then on pickle courts, formalize and upgrade to the volleyball court, upgrade to the loop walk surfacing, and reimagining or rebuild the bike park. And that is also not very defined yet, so I think that would beg taking a closer look at the bike. North Mesa Sports Complex. Again, this one here is varsity baseball field to synthetic turf, that again, it's pretty expensive to do. A lot of communities do that. They have pros and cons. Often communities feel like the cons make them worthwhile, but those are upgrades to bleachers, improved dugout, ADA accessibility, and then there's another one, the upgrade to all diamond fields, so that one is to be determined, because we haven't identified what the upgrades would entail. And then improve the concession stand or convert to truck cab. Are there any comments that we just talked about? Yes.
No.
There's a comment here.
Yeah, so the North Mason Park,
Yeah.
is that BMX track?
The North Mesa Park,
Bike park?
It actually, when they calculate it, starts up at the soccer field at Plant Field. Goes down through the mud volleyball courts there to the loop track and includes the tennis court and bike park area. I think there's also another one in there that we probably should just master plan that instead of trying to do something this year. Since it is the last large recreational track of land we have. Develop to some degree.
I just have a question with, converting the turf, this may be a question, but like, gophers are a major issue in our community. And, is that, I just don't know anything about how that works out, like, obviously there's nothing for them to eat there, but, are there still issues, maybe issues with them damaging turf? Or getting underneath things and coming up, or is something laid in as an underlay? that-
Yeah, it's got so much
Okay.
rocks and drainage, all that stuff that, I mean, I've never seen a problem with them.
Yeah, you pack it down so that your bases are much like concrete.
Yeah, Almost like putting a big patio. And I have seen a couple of communities that did it because of it.
It's expensive, but it didn't stop gophers.
Well, it's expensive, but also the savings on maintenance. And then also no rainouts. You don't have to rest them to save your turf. So there's a lot of advantages. They are expensive on the front end.
Well, and it also reduces water usage. Reduces pesticide usage. And, you know, again, the selfish reason we're kind of looking at some of this is maintenance time. We're just having so much trouble getting staff that if it takes a person an hour to brush it versus 6 hours to mow it every week, that's huge for what we're trying to do.
So Kevin asked, is there a section for picnic grounds, looking closely at the potential locations for MTV field work? I suggest that the North Mason Picnic Ground offers the best opportunity and.
Okay, we can put that in.
In light of Kevin's comment, also, is so I skipped through to the end. But the plans for public canyon, is that separate from this plan?
No, and I think it goes back to. I think we need to take a step back. And. Start with that. Study that was done with EMBA about some of the trail types and standards. And have that as a bigger community conversation about. What types of trails holistically do we want, where do we want to. Have nature trails versus pedestrian trails versus. Maybe mountain biking trails, do we really want co-use trails, where should they be, what elements should they be, what are there different maintenance standards for. A packed trail versus an asphalt trail. I just think I think based on the feedback we got from that, and as we've gone through this. That's probably where we're gonna wind up taking that, but I think that's gonna be a conversation. We're still trying to flesh out, but I think that's where it's gonna wind up. Being here in the near future.
David Teeter, Dara Jones is often used for dog ability training. If converted to turf, would that area still be allowed for dog use, or would those community members need to find an alternate location?
We've seen awful lot of that kind of stuff there, dog obedience classes. I think the whole idea is just like anywhere else, clean up after yourselves is the big issue. I know that's a scheduling issue.
Now, that's the big concern with Kirkville is well-behaved dogs and well-behaved animals. You have a dog that's in there trying to dig, that could be a problem. If currently, we have people that use our athletic fields that are not good dog parents, and it's a problem. That would be, that ultimately could be a policy decision. The artificial turf fields, you can't know, that would be a community conversation down the road, if that was a desire.
We typically don't see dog parks, but dog activities, supervised programs.
David, did you answer Kevin's question? Or did that answer Kevin's question? Did you ask?
Oh, I just did a kind of follow on. I was curious if the public hearing plan was.
Yes, it's open space stuff anywhere. And surprised, these little mention for open space preservation and care as described in the open space plan. That seems to be a key thing in public survey results.
I think there's more as we get towards the end of this. I don't know if it's going to cover everything you think, but let's take a look as we get to the end, and if there's something we obviously missed, please. We'll make notes now, but please remind us as we get a little further along.
Okay. So we'll pick up at the Orange Street Playlot. Improved design and ambiance. Again, I think that goes back to standards and I think we don't touch on those later on. Consider playground upgrades, address ADA access, add a dog station, and then directional signage and site ID signage. Overlook complex. There's again a thought to convert the diamond field to synthetic, sorry, not the diamond field, the soccer field to synthetic turf. And again, that's expensive, but we just talked about some of the benefits. Consider converting some of the other fields as well. I think the soccer field was a priority, so the other fields are not yet priced out. Improve ADA access throughout the park, and again, signage and directional signage. Signage kiosks, and then consider shelter upgrades and defer maintenance. And then trailhead, again, there's some trails that start or terminate there, and creating a better trailhead with kiosk and directional signage, walkway, station bench, trash receptacle, and the like. The Pine Street play lot. Again, consider improvements to ambience and design, improve trail access points and trail, site ID signage, directional signage, improve or replace basketball court, add accessible routes, consider more tables. That the trail from there has a really steep slope, and so potentially adding or addressing the accessibility may or may not be possible. And then consider more tables and seating. Kenyon Park, in White Rock, it's a big park with a lot of components. It doesn't have a lot of signage. So here signage is a short-term priority, and then pathway update needed. Improving ADA access throughout, fixing washouts at the basketball court, install plastic curbing at playground, improve the skate park, and improve the playground and add small community center. To the park. Ridgeway play lot, consider, I think, what was the name? Because I think this is already the name that we were recommending to change it to. Improved playgrounds, access road and parking path needs update, replace or remove old basketball court, and then signage and trailhead. Sun is a wonderful play lot. Improve playground, improve safety, surfacing to meet ADA access, add tables and seating, and add shade. Urban park, improve playground, improve safety, surfacing to meet ADA access, add tables and seating, add shade, improve the ball court or remove. Consider improvements to basketball court surfacing, improve volleyball court.
Actually,
Yeah.
to clarify a question, in other places there's this mention of a list of ones, is that basically
Low scoring amendment.
both arguments at that time?
What was it? We just score them 1, 2, 3. 1 being they're not functioning well or not the way they're intended to. 2, they're fine, might not be the greatest thing, but they're gonna last through this time period. 3, new state of the art or they're working really well. And that all goes into a formula to define part of your level of service.
So listed ones might be like, you know, 10 amenities in a park, and like 3 or 4 of them are ones that would be, that would.
Right, we hesitate to rank the whole park because of 1 or 2 amenities, which is why we look at each individual one that kind of adds a little bit of number to how great that park is. The ambiance, things you're seeing here, as we know, we put a brand new playground in. If you don't have shade, place to sit, it's not used like even something that's older. So it's called a grass system that we've been doing for about 15 years that it actually puts numbers to these things that then we typically just hand the list of ones to the director, because by the time the plan's done, half of them are already completed because they know that. But since this one, we was again so detailed that we included them in each part.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate the clarity.
Are there any questions on student admission? Chris?
No.
Okay, well,
I guess just one more thing, if you're interested in the level of service. There's a document on the county website that we showed you earlier. It's called Parks Condition Atlas, I believe. That has all the parks that were evaluated, their numbers, what they looked at, all that good info.
And also keep in mind that these are just the last pages of a very detailed document that will have all of this up front explaining it, but we'd be here for a week if we tried to present all that. So,
okay, Walnut Street play lot, improved playground, add tables and seating, add shade, and site ID signage. Western area park, improved playground, add tables and seating, add shade, add trash receptacles, dog waste station, directional sign, site ID sign. Improve basketball court, complete loop walk. There's like a little piece missing. Barranca Mesa Park, replace net as 1 tennis court, make improvements to the shuffleboard court or remove. Canyon Rim Trail, there's an item to add a passive note or overlook. To get people off the trail while looking out into the canyon. That one needs a little further scoping, in order to price it out. East Park, Silk Creek Playground, swing and climbing structure area with engineered wood fiber, provide accessible routes to the swing or small climbing structure, provide access ramp into the second playground, resurface basketball court, provide general maintenance, community golf course, replace edge tables and provide general cleaning.
I think back on your page, I think that update the trails and open space master plan, I think that looks weird there.
Oh,
I don't know if that's,
yeah, I think we,
I don't think even maybe consider moving that to the protection of
Yeah.
3.5 or.
Yeah.
And it's kind of hidden or something.
yes. Yeah. I think, yeah. Yeah, I think that's an important item that I think a little more, a little here. Yeah, updating trails and open space master plan. And I think that speaks to the comment that we had earlier that the space wasn't or hasn't been touched on so much. I think there's a larger or an open space master plan would be addressing some of those elements in conjunction with trails. Wakapine Cemetery, I don't know what I'm saying. Directional sign and ID, side ID sign. Los Pueblos Park, again, having a park master plan to identify or organize it a little better and identify elements that could be added. Main Gate Park, consider site improvements to improve design and ambiance and add tables and seating. That's really much right now. Myrtle Street pickleball courts, consider site improvements to improve design and ambiance, and then consider standalone pickleball courts. And then the Myrtle Street Green, consider site improvements to improve design and ambiance, consider completing the loop walk, that's just a little bit missing, and then add additional components such as fitness equipment to increase service. Nina Marsh Tennis Court, consider site improvements to improve design and ambiance, directional signage, site ID signage, tables and seating. North Mesa Stables, develop a Mesa Park area master plan. Consider planting or screening walls to improve outside appearance of the facility, improve equestrian trail access, address ADA access throughout the complex. Oppenheimer Green, consider site improvements to improve design and ambiance, add tables and seating, consider adding small components to increase service in the area. Are there any questions?
David Teeter, but for looking ahead, I don't see any discussion on golf course advisory, BMX park, multi-use gyms, or other large facility improvements that could be made. Did you intentionally exclude those, or is your assessment that they do not fall in the list for amenities? I would think they should be included as part of your overall integrated master plan. Kevin, but I think we need to do the open space trail master plan rather than update it. Those are the only two comments.
So the urban trail, is that? Are we considering that as already in process, so it's not in there? Okay. And all right, I'll save my other questions. I skipped them.
Yeah, and I think that pertains to BMX and gymnasium, so those are projects that were already established and.
Question I had was, there were a few places where it mentioned, doing, on a given park, doing a master plan. there's some of the larger parks, but we've got ones that if we do the turf, like, looking at like multi-million-dollar projects. Do we have master plans for each of the larger parks?
Okay. No, there's. One of the deficiencies is like the 5% of the product. And then create some of the unintended conflict that we have. Some of the stuff that's never been thought through. It was like the dog park that overland park is like the favorite example. It's just really cool area, but it's starting to two soft activities that there's a space there that here, all we gotta do is put a gate across here and get it done.
Yeah.
And it's really too small and not really functioning for the one. But by the way, if you're there and the plant's off on, you could get stopped. If you got to go to that. Yeah.
So looking at that is on the list, not necessarily on this list, but on the general list.
Yeah, I think we just need to evaluate a lot of things. Do we have enough athletic, do we have enough at the right size? Who plays on that field? And we've got one field that I got 30 or 50 hours of play on it in a year. There's no dogs that run out there and people playing on it. But is it because it looks like a cow pasture? And there's just a whole bunch of questions that we kind of prioritize these things.
And I have one more comment, Kevin, and I think most of the stuff about open space and trails improvements is handled in the next section. So if they're not, keep making comments.
Anything else? Okay, I'm gonna jump back in. Objective 3.3. Upgrade outdated amenities that don't function well. These are ones that we might not look as a large amenity that ranked a 1, but what you'll see at the top end of this is to develop standards for things like picnic tables, playground surfacing, playground curbing, address parking lots that are in poor condition. It's kind of across the board where you see different levels and different, I guess, construction standards. And if you get those, laying trails, you can have different standards for different types of trails, but build them all the same if they're the same type of trail. Improve the turf conditions across the system. Whether it's with artificial turf or improving those conditions. Install additional trails, bike paths, connectivity. Formally distinguish the difference between trailheads and trail access points. Update and reprint trail map signage. Improve deficient trail and trailhead features identified in the Los Alamos County Trailhead Assessment, which again is a pretty detailed and substantial document that we pulled these recommendations from. Implement county plans for extensions, upgrades, maintenance, and new trails that benefit visitors and residents. Increase funding and staffing to address trail maintenance and improvements. So again, we looked at potentially a new staff person to help not just implement, but continue to upgrade the.
That one might be a big book that was right. That one is in the tourism section.
Okay, all right, you got that. Right, okay. Implement recommendations from the bicycle transportation plan. I'm not going to read them, but you can see the bullet marks there that we pulled out of that plan that we thought really stuck out as things that we saw needed to be implemented. Explore potential partnership with NPS for development and the multi-use trail plan, again, as a long-term. Preserve open space, historical, cultural resources as the objective. Continue to review the county development code and the intersection of off-street facilities, trails, and park paths.
in an ongoing. Maintain the use of trails. As the main resources for residents and visitors to access most open space lands. That was we saw the short-term action step, improve and enhance vistas, some of which are or may be located within existing park or properties. As a midterm. Enhance trails and open space to meet the needs of the community and visitors, ongoing. Prioritize trail access, diverse uses and connectivity, short-term. Expansion of the Canyon Rim Trail as a paved, multi-use trail that had wide support, including similar type of experience desired in White Rock. Ongoing. Pave candidate debuted, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, trail as a midterm. And implement county plans for extensions, upgrades, maintenance, and new trails that benefit visitors and residents, including funding, staffing, and addressing trail. That sounds like a duplicate too.
So, I just, David Teeter had asked, can we just clarify the answer to his question regarding the ice rink BMX multi-use gym? I think you mentioned they were ongoing projects and that's why they're not listed. Is that correct?
I know the BMX track.
I think we do need, the ice rink is not on there and it came up quite a bit. We need to bring that one up.
Golf course, ice rink, BMX, parks, multi-use gym, and other large.
The golf course is in play. Those other four we didn't put in there because they were already in the process, but we could make note of them under the appropriate category that these are in the process. We can get them captured.
Okay, golf course. The BMX gyms, so the fourth one.
Ice rink. Yeah, we've got some information. that we can put in back next year.
Okay, next objective, increase ADA accessibility at all facilities. Implement phase 1, 2, and 3 of the ADA accessible transition plan. Again, that's a huge document, it's a study within itself. In our appendix, we will have 2 cut sheets that are just the list, kind of like this is, costs, what these phases are, so it explains what we're saying. And then we are pretty much at this, again, order of magnitude, assigning about $650,000 a year that would cover that time span of approximately 10 to 12 years. In that plan, there's kind of the here you can fix it, here you can meet code, and here you can make it really nice and customer friendly, and the costs go up for each of those options. So again, a lot of decisions to be made when you have the money to do something, and how, just like a playground, you can spend $1 million on a playground, you can spend 50,000. Yeah. Okay, so address ADA improvements identified in the following locations. Again, I'm not going to read those. Those were all broken down in that study. Improve restroom availability and maintenance in parks and trailhead. As the objective, the action steps, add restrooms and keep open longer, elevate cleaning standards as an ongoing problem or an action step. And consider installing a restroom closer to the playground at North Mesa Park. Long term. Additional questions or comments? Yes.
So on the ADA issues, so at the during the ADA presentation, trails were brought up, right? Like there's not enough trails that are ADA accessible or useful. So on the list is the Canyon Rim Trail, finishing that off. So that's going to be that's going to help out with ADA. But an idea that was suggested to me is part of one of the plans for Pueblo Canyon we had was connector from North Mesa to go around the golf course. It was, since it's relatively flat already, that was a possible area that we could pave and maybe link it up with the aquatic center to the urban trail. And obviously you're going to be a more fit ADA versus public uses, but that is a category that's probably underserved, so.
We probably should add the Nick Trail, the other grant to make an ADA route between Peak, which is the intersection, and the parks, and the Passion for down.
It would fit in the ADA category.
Just moving forward. Okay. So, any other comments on Zoom from people?
Comment from Kevin. Question, is it possible to get clearer information about the total cost, historical funds and capital expenditures, and historical usage of the various county records, facilities and programs? Info and annual company budget is inadequate for understanding. I have tried through requesting from staff, but I have never succeeded in getting clear information. I think this is important for providing input to the county on priorities to CFP work.
Okay, so that we can pull up.
That's all that's done.
So. Thanks everybody for participating. If you have one of those 3 o'clock in the morning ideas, you can send me or Linda an email. We'll be happy to add it to the list. If there's something you want to revisit or know your friends, we've got another meeting here tomorrow at 2:30. It will be also on Zoom. We'll have another meeting tomorrow night at 5:30. That's over at Cottonwood on the Greens of Golf Course in the community room. That will be on Zoom as well. We'll also be at the Mesa Public Library. The community service staff will be there on Saturday from 10 to 12. If you got questions or want to get pick up a copy of this presentation, we'll have it there. You want to come share some more information, we'll be happy to take that and get it back to Katrina and Pat with that information. Our game plan is in the next couple of weeks, take your comments. Try to fix some of the holes in this document with some of the pricing. And have a presentation at the Park and Recreation Board in March. And then probably by the end of March or 1st of April, we'd like to try to take this to county council for adoption so we can get our any final thoughts, comments from anyone, questions?
Kevin put in a comment. And said, please add my last 2 unanswered questions, and request for responses.
Okay.
Okay, we appreciate everybody's attendance and input. And from our perspective, as Corey said, we're gonna, you can get comments to Corey or Linda, then they'll get all those collected and get them to us. And our next steps to improve the draft report, including appendix and all, start to finish. Fill some holes in, those types of things, and by March have the final. And then if we got to tweak it a little bit before we present it for adoption, we can do that. But it's coming together. It's
So when it's put out for adoption, would it be essentially about the entire, the big old thick thing? This is essentially the summary of.
Oh, yeah.
You may already do this, but one request would be just as you put that together, if it's all, if it's in a PDF, everything's all hyperlinked. So I know it's a lot of work to do that, but it makes a big difference as people are trying to drill down.
Yep.
Find stuff.
It will be formatted. So far, we're looking for content. Because as we format it, we'll do it really nice, and then we got to pull it back apart, and we got to put it back together. So Word is the best way right now for us to do that and have it at least in a reasonable. So we're not really considering a public document yet, but yet we want content input. And I mean, it's not. It looks nice, but it's not. It's gonna look a lot better. And the biggest thing that we'll talk about is, for example, the entire survey. 500 pages, occasionally we get people say, you know, that should be an appendix. So, yeah, we'll stack it on. But pretty soon, you know, it's impossible to get a physical. So that's been distributed as what we call a staff document. It's on the webpage. All of your plans, we're not gonna attach all those as, you know, so the hyperlinks is how we do that. And endorsing or pulling out, you know, we got a whole section on looking at particularly those 6 plans that were not too old and had relevant stuff. And bulleted out what we gleaned out of that whole report as still important for this one. You know, and the stuff like we talked about, the trail plan is important, and that you can solve a whole bunch of this stuff by doing it. So a lot of this is anecdotal stuff. And, you know, you can throw money at it, but the best way, just like we talked about with the dog park at the softball,